use married couples. In most cases, some of these things will be half if you're a single person when I talk about deductions and stuff. But I'm going to use a married couple. So married couple, husband and wife each make 50 grand. That's 100,000. Now, what's so funny is people will get a paycheck. They don't even look at what they make anymore. They don't even look at all of what happens in the paycheck. All they do is they scroll their eyes down to the bottom right-hand corner because there's two magic words there that everybody cares about. Net pay, which means after you took everything out, what's left? Well, what I want you to understand is there are a couple things on your paycheck that probably are pretty important and you should understand. So when you get your salary of that $100,000 and you add it up between the husband and wife or the two partners, if you subtract, you're only allowed to subtract a couple things when you have a job. There's only a couple things you're allowed to subtract. One of those would be a 401k contribution. Could also be a simpler SEP. There's many different business retirement plans, and Primerica can offer all of those. But the 401k contribution, if it's not a Roth, you get to deduct that. So let's just hypothetically say you put $5,000 in your 401k. Now I'm down to $95,000 because I'm allowed to deduct that. And it's basically before it gets to tax time, where they take it out of your paycheck. The other one is medical premiums. A lot of people get a job because they like those benefits. Let's say you pay $5,000 a year for your medical premiums that come out of your paycheck. So 100,000 minus 5. In most cases, and there are a couple other things in there, don't get me wrong, but these are the major. You're now at $90,000 of adjusted gross income. So that's just kind of the starting point. You're at 90,000. You didn't really make 100, you only made 90 according to the government. Now there's a decision tree. And that decision tree, it depends on each of y'all's situation. You have a decision tree between, do I want to take what they call the free deductions? Now, the free deductions is called the standard deduction. What happens is if you feel you can't itemize, we'll get to that in a sec, the right side of that decision tree, then you'll just take the free deductions handed to you. These free deductions are given to you as long as you can fog a mirror. That's all you got to do is fog a mirror and you're going to get that. The standard deduction actually went up under the one big beautiful bill. I want to say it went up between $500 and $1,000, but I know it went up because I tried to find it here before we got on, but I know it went up because last year you only got $29,200 in a standard deduction. This year, the standard deduction is $31,500. So I think it went up to $30,000 or $30,500, and then it now is, because of the one big beautiful bill, $31,500. So think about this. If you say that's all I want, you take that $90,000 from adjusted gross income and you subtract the $31,500, you only have taxable income at the bottom of $58,500. That's all you're paying taxes on. That's a pretty generous tax code the way that's set up. Now, if we go to the other side, which is where the one big beautiful bill really can have some popularity and opportunity, when you itemize your deductions, you're trying to get more than the free deductions of $31,500. We're trying to get more than that. There's four major ones. There's a lot of others, but I'm going to give you the four major ones. The four major ones is mortgage interest, charitable contributions, state taxes, and property taxes. Now, mortgage interest that you have, it's not unlimited, but for most people on this call, me included, you don't get to a point where you can't deduct some of it. Usually it's a fully deductible. Not always, but rare situations isn't. Otherwise it is. Charitable contributions, I think you can do up to 50 or 60% of what you make. Most people don't give away 50% of their check. So those two are kind of not unlimited, but close. The last two, though, start the one big beautiful bill story. Okay? Yes, the standard deduction went up, so that helps also from the one big beautiful bill. But the last two are state taxes and property taxes. And what they are is the acronym turns into SALT, S-A-L-T, state and local taxes, state and property taxes, state and local taxes, state and property taxes. Local and property just interchange those words. So SALT, what had happened was back in 2017, without going too deep into this, it's really comical. The federal government got frustrated back in 2016, and they said it's not fair that different people that make money in different states will end up paying more or less to the federal government in Washington, D.C., depending on their state income tax bracket. Let me use a simple example. If you're in South Dakota and you make $100,000, there's no state income tax. It's a zero. The government's pretty well run there. If you're in California and you make $100,000, you're probably closer to 7%, plus or minus. Well, here's the deal. If the California gets $7,000 of your 100,000 and South Dakota gets none of your 100,000, well, now the federal government says, wow, I like the $100,000 person in South Dakota better than the $100,000 person in California. And the reason why that is the state always gets their money first, because you get to deduct your state taxes against your federal return. So the state always gets their money first. So they were getting frustrated that people, these high state tax states were robbing first. Now, don't get me wrong, the guy in California is paying a boatload of taxes and he's not happy either. But the federal government's upset also because the state's getting their money first and the federal government's getting what's left. And so they changed the law, and they called this SALT when they changed the tax code back in 2017. And they capped those last two words, state taxes and property taxes. Those last two, the SALT, were capped at $10,000. So if you're in California and you had 7% on 100,000, $7,000, and your property taxes were another $7,000, that's 14,000. Very realistic. But they only got to deduct 10,000 of it. So you lost $4,000 worth of deductions. That kind of stinks. So that went on for about 7 or 8 years where that happened, and they capped them. And then what happened was that they changed the bill, obviously in the one big beautiful bill. They changed the tax code on this because a bunch of people came together in those higher tax states and said, you're hurting some of our higher income and even not so high income earners at 100,000 because they can't get these extra deductions. So in the one big beautiful bill, the first provision is the SALT deduction is going to go from 10,000, which, shoot, that wasn't a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people that, didn't get some of the deductions they wanted. And what they ended up doing is they ended up using the standard deduction because they couldn't get enough from the itemized in that decision tree. So they end up going to the standard deduction. In fact, 85% of our population used the standard deduction last year. Some of us won't do that this year because here's the deal. It goes from 10,000 to now you can take up to $40,000 of SALT between those two as long as you make less than 500,000. Now that's a key phrase here because people sometimes say, oh, that's just for the rich, these bigger deductions. If you make more than 500,000, you can't have this. I mean, it starts to go down between 500 and 600. I don't want to get too wonky, but after 600,000, it's a nothing burger. So the millionaires and the billionaires ain't getting none of this. They're getting back to the 10,000. That's all they're getting. But I think where the value is for the people that are on this call is if you start thinking about this, logically, you go, who does that affect? I would say anybody in Wisconsin, I know we have Minnesota and others on there, if you're at about 150,000 of combined income, or you're just taking the itemized deductions, maybe give a lot to charity, Goodwill or a church or a synagogue. I mean, we're talking about over 150 to 500. You probably are going to get a pay raise from the government. You're probably going to get a pay raise with the government. So that's the first one is that 10,000 for SALT now goes to 40. So that's number one. The second one, and I'm going to take this down, but I may come back to this here for just a little bit, okay? The second one is going to be for business owners. Now, business owners, one of the things that's been frustrating for business owners, and the code has been this way for a long time, and it's really been goofy the last 7 or 8 years, is a business owner, let's say they're a farmer and they want to buy a tractor for 200,000 bucks. They don't get to write that $200,000 off the day they buy it. They actually have to wait and take a little piece of that 200,000 to deduct each year over a bunch of years. There's a schedule for it. It might be 10 years for a tractor. Well, now business owners get to deduct, as long as they're a part of this, they call it Section 179 of the tax code, but they're able to deduct most things now immediately and get the full deduction. I'll give you a couple simple examples of this. The first one is Jeremiah Hauser was talking about, becoming a rep at Primerica. Owning your own business, whether it's this or whether, like I'll talk about my little rental property business, is really important. If there are a lot of reps right now in Primerica that are buying trucks, because in the Midwest, the snow and everything else, like I've got tonight 4 inches out there and another few coming. Like you get a truck and it's basically meets the compliance of that. Let's say you make $50,000 part-time with Primerica, and in addition to your regular job. And you can do that. And then you buy a $50,000 truck that's eligible for this. Check with your tax preparer. You could legitimately, very possibly write the whole thing off this year because it's immediate expensing. You don't have to write off $10,000 a year for 5 years, which is, I think, what the old schedule was. You can now write off the full thing. Can you imagine making $50,000 and not paying any taxes on it because you bought a truck with that profit? To me, I think that's pretty powerful. Look, I've got a jokey little rental property business. I did it for a buddy of mine because he had no retirement and I knew he was going to have no shot. He worked at the church most of his whole life. He never made good money. Like he's got the heart of gold. The guy will help homeless people at midnight. I kid you not, I've got stories. And he's a great friend of mine, but he had no savings. So he had a great skill to fix things. And so we started a little rental property business. Well, fast forward, we now have 6 rental properties we fix up and we rent out. We're talking about 2 of our properties need siding. So if 2 of them need siding, we're like, look, I'm not climbing at age 53. I'm not climbing an 18-foot ladder because there's a 2 and 3 shot. I will die. We'll die because I don't have that much balance. So we might have to buy a lift. Can you imagine if next year we buy a $25,000 lift and we have $25,000 worth of profits? We would be able to write all of those profits off potentially of the $25,000 purchase, which means I just got a coupon from the federal government for that $25,000 lift. That's probably a 30% coupon between the federal and state. So now that doesn't cost near as much, 17,000 for that lift. Then I can use it and I don't have to rent from a general rental. A lot of you understand what I'm talking about. And that might cost me over 2 or 3 months, another 4 or 5,000. And then we can one day, next year, and the following year, we could start renting out that. And then we can make money on it. I mean, like this tax code is going to be very friendly to business owners. Now, why does it matter to you even if you don't have a small business? Number one, you can join Primerica and have a small business. Now you get some of this fun. Number 2 is even if you're just investing money. I have heard multiple corporations say, ooh, this is really good. If I'm with Eli Lilly, I still need a whole bunch of forklifts to move around all the medicine in a warehouse. If I'm buying equipment and I now get to write the whole thing off right away, I have heard multiple corporations say, ooh, that's better. We pay less taxes than we did the year before. We can now start buying back our stock or paying a bigger dividend. What do you think that does to the stock price? Now, the SALT deduction that I gave you is from 2025 to 2029. So people between, I believe, 150 and 500,000 are probably in that range. Doesn't mean you can't have it less than that. It just, the standard deduction gets a lot more useful. But that's 2025, 2029. This, for the business owners, is permanent. Now, the joke I make is until the next Congress comes in and throws it out, and that can happen. But if nobody touches it, there is no sunset provision. This would continue until the cows come home, which means forever. So that's number 2. I wanted you to understand about that. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 is really great for everybody 65 and over. Now, this provision is only going to be for 4 years. This is going to be from 2025 to 2028, and this is retro. All this stuff here at the beginning of the year. That's an important thing to understand. So this is the first year of 4. So here's the deal. I'm going to go back and I'm going to pull up that. I'm going to go back and I'm going to pull up that little accounting sheet that I did. And the reason why is that I want you to see for a real life example of, let's say, a 65-year-old. So let's just make an assumption. Let's assume that, both of you, husband and wife, are age 65 this year. Okay. Now, one of the things you find is that most people that are 65 and above, couple things you find out. A lot of them are not working. Doesn't mean all aren't, but a lot of them are not really working full time. You're not making the same income you did in your 40s and 50s. Not all, but most. So that's the first thing. The second thing you start to find out is that people start using the standard deduction. Okay? Now, the reason why is that 2 of the 4 things that one of the 4 things is mortgage interest. Well, if you've paid off your house and you are 65, let's say, then you don't have that mortgage interest. That means the standard deduction looks a lot more attractive because you might not be able to give as much to the church because you make less, or the goodwill or whatever. And then you have state taxes are less because you make less, and your property taxes are your property taxes. So a lot of people, so I'm going to use the standard deduction for just a simple example of this third one for 65 and over. However, this next one I call a mega bonus deduction for 65 and over. This applies whether you take the standard deduction or whether you itemize, you're going to get this bonus deduction. So you get it either way. I'm just going to use the standard deduction as a simple example for you, but it works either way. So remember we talked about the standard deduction at the beginning. $31,500 is what you're going to get for this year. If the husband and the wife, or the 2 partners, are 65 and over, they are going to get an additional $6,000 of deductions per person. $6,000. That means if you are married, you get $12,000. $12,000 of extra deductions. So now we add the 31,500 to the 12,000. That means the first $43,500 you get is tax-free. $43,500 worth of deductions. Now, in addition, the standard deduction has a little extra juice that you get once you turn 65, and this is unrelated to the big beautiful bill. So there's a 65 bonus deduction that's been around for a long time, and it goes up just a little bit every year. I think it's been around for more than a decade. I didn't even know about the deduction until earlier this year. I believe, now this is just for the standard deduction, this mini bonus deduction. Like I said, this has nothing to do with the big beautiful bill, but I'm trying to explain to you how great this is for seniors. We have $31,500 standard deduction. We have an extra $12,000 for a married couple filing joint for the mega bonus deduction from the one big beautiful bill. That's for the next 4 years, 25, 26, 27, 28. Now you get a little mini bonus deduction. I believe it's $1,600 a person. I believe it's $3,200. Right, I'm close if I'm not exact. That's $3,200 on top of the $43,500. I believe the first $46,700 of income you make, you are not going to pay one gosh darn penny in taxes. Not a penny. And then Social Security is never taxable at 100%. The most it graduates up, and we don't have enough time to talk about that, but it slowly graduates up. This is a really big deal. You can almost make an argument, granted it's an argument, that the first $50,000 is probably not getting taxed. But again, $46,700 is unbelievable. So I think it's going to free up a lot of extra money for seniors. Here's one of the recommendations I would give you all if you're 65 and over on this call right now. I would talk with your rep at Primerica. I would also try and get a three-way call going with the accountant that's going to do your taxes this next year, as well as the rep, and have them work together. Look, you pay them both. Have them work together. And on a three-way call, say, hey, maybe for next year, maybe you don't have to have as much withheld. So let's say I'm living in retirement, I'm taking out a couple thousand a month from my IRA just to live on, in addition to my Social Security. Most people have taxes withheld so that they don't get stuck with a big number at the end of the year. You might be able to talk to your tax preparer and your rep at Primerica, and they come together. You may find out that you might not need as much in taxes withheld because of this one big beautiful bill. I mean, I know my in-laws have exactly that. And so I've told them about this. I'm like, you don't have to withhold as much from your IRA. You may not have as much held from your pension either. In other words, you get a little more back in your paycheck. And my in-laws are so excited because they're going to get to go to Culver's an extra couple times a month because they love Culver's. I'm like, you're going to get to go a little more next year. They're on a fixed income, but there's a little bit more to work with now. So that's the third one, is the mega bonus deduction. So we've covered so far. The first one is that SALT deduction. You know, you basically get, you basically have an opportunity to get up to $40,000 worth of deductions if you itemize. You used to only get 10. So that's number one. Number two, we talked about the immediate expensing of equipment for business owners, but that also affects the investor as well. Because again, I think they're going to buy back stock and they're going to pay bigger dividends. And this is going to be a big deal over the next 4 years. The third one is that mega bonus deduction for 65 and overs. And that I think is going to be gigantic, as we just talked about. Let's go to number 4 here. And then lastly, number 5. The fourth one is tips and overtime. Look, I will bet you if I were to poll people on this call outside of Primerica reps, let's just take I assume there's probably 30, 35 clients on this call right now. I were to poll you, how many of you all either get tips or you get overtime? I would bet you that half this group does. That's usually the way it works. Well, you're in for a great surprise. Now, I'm going to give you an example of tips. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of tips, but it works the same way with overtime. But here's the deal: the overtime, I need to explain to you how it works because it's a little goofy how they wrote the legislation. So in overtime, only the half of time and a half is tax-free. Only the half of time and a half is tax-free. So we're going to use a simple example, and this will drive this home. Let's say you make $10 an hour. Okay, Jeremiah Houseworth hires me, Tim Boca hires me, $10 an hour. I'm working 40 hours. They want me to now work an additional 8-hour shift on Saturday. I go, fine, you bet. They pay me time and a half. So instead of $10 an hour, they're going to pay me time and a half, or $15 an hour. Only the 5 of the 15 is tax-free, up to the first $25,000. Okay, so only the half of the time and a half. The base, always just taxed normally, but that half of the time and a half will get the no taxation. But let me go to tips, because tips is a gigantic one, okay? I mean, the restaurant industry in general, the Ubers, the DoorDashes, you can go on and on about this, courier services. Like, tips happen a lot throughout our country, a lot. So think about this. If you're a server, you could be working at Applebee's, TGI Fridays, Olive Garden, pick a place. You're making money. Most of your money's in tips. Some of the cash tips, I know some people don't necessarily claim, but the credit cards, you have no choice. You got to claim those. So you've got tips that you've collected throughout the year. Well, at the beginning of the year, there was no restaurant in the United States of America that knew that the big, beautiful bill was going to pass in July. If any restaurant knew that, they would be a fortune teller. There's no way they could tell 7 months into the future. So they continued doing things the way they've done them for the last year and the last 50 years. They just kept doing it. So what happens is when the big, beautiful bill passes, that bill is retroactive to January of 2025. That means that every single server in the United States of America, every tipped person in the United States of America this year has overpaid on their taxes. This is why I wish, and I'm going to blame the reps, but I'm going to blame a couple of you clients as well with the right heart. Hopefully you understand this. But I blame you because you're going to realize that you wish that 5 of your friends were on who all get tips, because this is a really important thing for them to understand, is that the first 25,000 is tax-free, which means they have overpaid because into the federal government's tax system, because the restaurant, the payroll department inside that restaurant, or ADP or whoever they use, none of them knew the bill was going to pass. So the whole year of 2025, they have charged you taxes on tips they shouldn't have. Let's just make an assumption. This is totally an assumption. Each person's check is a little different that they get paid. Let's say that you're in the 12% tax bracket, which most people will be with tips. Most. Some get to 22, but 12%. And let's say on the first 25,000, they took out throughout the course of this year, 2025, they took out 12% knowing you owed 12%. I'm just making the example simple. That means every single server in this example in the United States of America, and it's going to be most in this example, is going to get an extra $3,000 tax refund. An extra $3,000 tax refund. Now, I know that we are a consumption economy, and I should be thrilled everybody's getting this $3,000 back. Because you know what they're going to do with it? Spend it. And that drives the economy. And we need that because 70% of our country's economy is the consumer. You, me, everybody else on this call. But hopefully the people that are on this call will take that $3,000 that they never were expecting anyway, and they'll put it in a Roth IRA if they're eligible. And then that way you can start that retirement plan. It won't even hurt because it doesn't change your standard of living, because the government's just handing this to you for the next 4 years. And now starting next year, they'll figure this out. And let's say now in that example, you get an extra $250 a month in your paycheck. Because again, you don't have to wait the whole year. They're going to start right away and say, you're good. I mean, the only people that don't get this money as a tip person is if they make more than $300,000 a year as a married couple or single 150. Let's be honest. How many people is that going to affect? Maybe somebody at Ruth Chris or Morton Steakhouse. Outside of that, no. Like this is going to be a gigantic opportunity. You could fund your Roth here with the tax refund in the next month or two, or part of it. You could do $250 a month into a Roth, and you're just keeping your same standard of living, but now you're starting a retirement account. I'm begging you all as clients, I saw somebody give me a thumbs up, would you please do me a favor? Tell 2 or 3 of your tipped people that you hang out with, tell them they've got to call the rep that brought you on here. Because I'll tell you what, if people just blow this money, this is 4 years where you can start to build a nice little nest egg, because it's not going to hurt you. If you wait the 4 years, this may go away and you may not get this again. This is a big deal, and I'm hoping that you take advantage of this opportunity. So that's number 4. The last one is number 5. And that is what they call the Trump accounts. Now, look, some of you are going to say, I love that guy. And some of you are going to call him the orange man. I hate that guy. I don't care if you love or hate him. Here's what you need to understand. This is going to happen also for the next 4 years, just like the tips and overtime from 2025 to 2028. Now, this one, I believe, let's say the next president is Gavin Newsom. Historically, there's a lot of flipping between Democrats and Republicans. Let's say it goes that. I will, with small g, guarantee you, and so I can't guarantee you this, but I will bet you lots of money that when this Trump account is done, the new president will start their version for 4 years, and it'll be a Newsom account. And then it might be a J.D. Vance account. And then it might be a, pick somebody, a Nancy Pelosi account. Like, I think this is going to be the basis of the future for how we do kids' accounts, to try and encourage children that then turn into adults to save money, because they get some momentum. And you just need a little momentum, and then momentum begets momentum. It doesn't matter whether you're losing weight, it doesn't matter whether you're saving money or anything else. Momentum begets momentum. So let me explain these Trump accounts to you. So if you have a baby between 2025 and 2028, you are going to be handed $1,000 from our federal government. Now, I say you, but it ain't coming in the form of a tax credit. This is a total guess, but when they passed the legislation back in July, I always loved the government. Like Nancy Pelosi had one of the funniest lines I've ever heard in my career in 2010. She said when they passed Obamacare, we have to pass the bill to see what's in it. And at first blush, I go, what? And then I realized Nancy Pelosi exposed to the world on that day in 2010 that not one congressman in the United States of America, Republican or Democrat, has ever read a bill cover to cover. So what they do is they pass the thing, usually along party lines, and then over the next year, they figure out what's in it. So here's what's comical. Some of you are like, wait a minute, I had a baby 3 months ago. I'm on this call. It's 2025. Where's my $1,000? They pass the bill. They won't have the account set up until July of 2026. That's how foolish our government is. Wouldn't it be cool if you had these things set up, then you pass the bill? It's just a thought. Doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So we're going to have to wait. So some people will say, okay, well, I'm sure I'll just get a tax credit for this for the $1,000. Oh, no, you won't, because the fear is that the parents might spend the money. So this is my guess. This is a total Mark Everswick guess, but I think I'm going to be really close. Starting in May, a couple months before, they'll start sending out letters. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Congratulations, you get a Trump account. Okay, you get a Trump account. Please take this QR code. Please take this voucher. Please take this control number to your financial institution that's eligible to do this and invest it. Okay? Now, in addition to that $1,000 that you're going to bring to the financial institution, you're also going to be able to do up to $5,000 per year of your money, your parents' money, your grandparents' money. Even a corporation is going to be eligible to do this, but they've got some kinks they have to work out with that. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds there. But you can put up to $5,000 a year away from the age of 0 to 8. Okay? From 0 to 8. After the kid turns 8, you can't put any more money away. So that's it. You're done after that. Then it's just whatever compounding happens. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and explain this because I have clients and reps on. For the reps, you'll catch this a little more so. For the clients, you may have to call your rep afterwards to kind of explain this in more detail. The Trump account is going to be what I call a hybrid account. These are my words, not the big, beautiful bill. But I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for everybody to understand. So from 0 to 18, the Trump account works in theory, not completely, but in theory, similar to what they call an UGMA or an UTMA account, which is just a child's account where the parent is a guardian. Even if you go to the bank and you open up a savings account for the kid, you still open an UGMA or an UTMA. They just don't tell you that's what it is, but that's what it is. So from 0 to 18. So you can't touch the money, basically. That's locked. You're locked out. So it's a kid's account till age 18, but you're the guardian of it, let's say the parent. At age 18, the Trump account in theory, again in theory, works a lot like a 529 plan. So if the kid decides they want to use the Trump account for college or better, so college, master's, they're probably going to have vocational in there as well. But again, not all this is written out yet. It'll be fleshed out over the next 7-8 months. So the Trump account kind of works like a 529. If you want to go to college, great. You can use this money tax-free and penalty-free. So all the growth is tax-free. The Trump account money's tax-free. Great. You can use it for that. If you don't use it for that, then from 18 to 59 and a half, the Trump account in theory works a lot like a Roth IRA. It's tax-free growth, tax-free if you take it out at 59 and a half. If you don't wait till 59 and a half and you take it before that, you get hit with taxes and penalties on all the growth and probably the $1,000 that the government gave you. That's my guess. So the thing is that it works like that. Now, I will tell you this, a Primerica rep is not going to be able to offer this for you, but you better work with the Primerica rep, and I'll explain why here now. This is if you're a client right now and you have a child, a grandchild, when this comes out, there's going to be an incredible amount of marketing. The marketing from the federal government wants you to start doing this because they're the one that's promoting this. There's going to be from the people that are eligible to invest your money. Now, we don't know who's eligible yet. We don't know. Okay. Here's the reason why Primerica is not going to offer this, but you still want to work with them all the way through because you can get hosed. And when I tell you can get hosed, your kid can get screwed. And I'm going to be as forward as I can possibly be on this call without cussing and getting sanctioned here by the company. The expense ratio on these investments, they have to be an index-like investment with an expense ratio of less than 0.1%. So who's eligible to do this? First one, probably Vanguard will have like an S&P 500 index fund for that 1,000 that you want to put away. That's probably going to be the best option for you. You're not going to be able to get all of the funds that we have to offer and all of the opportunities that we have, but that's probably the best for the next 10, 20, 50 years, however long you're going to hold that Trump account. The second one is not so good because see, the S&P 500 has historically averaged about 10% a year, plus or minus, if you go back long enough. However, I think the banks are going to get involved. I mean, look, there was a 1.5 million babies born in 2024. 1.5 million. That means the government's given out, if there was 4 more years of that, they're giving out 1.5 billion a year. That's 6 billion total. That's before you, anybody else put a penny into these Trump accounts. So that's the best case scenario. And everybody wants this money. It could be tens of billions or hundreds of billions by the time it's all done. I kid you not, if everybody puts away into these things, their own money as well. So I think there's going to be a bunch of banks that are going to offer a CD S&P 500. They're going to figure out a way to say, oh, you get the safety of a CD and you get the S&P, which has some opportunity for growth. And they're going to figure out how to create a return that's probably going to get you half that. By the way, ask your financial professional at Primerica to run the difference over 65 years on $1,000 between 4% and 10, and it will blow your mind. I mean, it will blow your mind. Here's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is, and this concerns me, is I think the whole life industry from the Gerber Life Grow Up Plan is going to take a shot at this. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but if they can pull it off and they put life insurance in there, you run as fast as possible whole life insurance away from that $1,000 opportunity because you don't want it. You don't want it. It'll destroy your money, and you'll be so frustrated while your next door neighbor who had a baby the same time as you has $500,000 at a 10% rate of return for 65 years. I mean, there's going to be some shysters, I believe, that are going to try and play in this. So you want to do that. But here's the key to this, and this is really important. After the $1,000 the government gives you, which you probably need to put into an S&P 500 index fund unless you have a really unusual situation, because we want to have 18, 20, 50 years to grow this money. And as long as you can handle the volatility, it's going to be a big number down the road. Here's the thing, though. You don't want to put any of your hard-earned money in a Trump account beyond the first 1,000. You want to put it in a 529 plan. And there's 3 reasons on why you want to put it in a 529 plan versus a Trump account. I'm going to give you all 3 of these right now. The first one is liquidity. Look, in the next 18 years, based on history, there's a good chance we will have a financial crisis. Okay? We had one in 2008. About every 25 years, 30 years, people get stupid. And they get greedy, and then they get illegal, and then it gets ugly. And 2008 was a good example of that. We will have one of those, is my guess, in the next 18 years. If you have no job and you run out of money, at least you have the opportunity to go into that 529 plan. You can't touch the Trump account because if the Trump account plays like an UGMA, you can only touch it for unusual situations like buying a car and basically food, clothing, and shelter. You can't touch it. You're not supposed to. And the government's probably going to lock it up and not let you anyway. At least with a 529, if you put away $100 a month or $5,000 a year or whatever you're going to put away, or $25 a month, at least you can still go get that. The principal would be tax-free because you've already paid taxes on it in a 529, and just the growth would be taxed and penalized. But at least you have money there to feed your family in a liquidity crisis. I hope you never need that, but it's there. Let me give you the second one. The second reason is flexibility. Some of the reps on this call, Jeremiah knows my plight here. So 5 years ago, almost literally to the day, we had to kick out our 19-year-old son. After 3 semesters through college, he had decided to get poor grades, get withdrawn from classes, basically not go to classes. It was a really, really ugly situation. And so it was one of the tougher days in my life when we had to kick him out. And it was in December. And you know what? Took him a couple of years, but he found his way. By the way, end of the story, he's doing fantastic going to the University of Minnesota. He's going to be a teacher's assistant next semester as a sophomore. He's older, he's 24, but he's got everything working in the right direction. But here's the deal. If my son knew I had put $5,000 away per year into a Trump account in the early 2000s when he was born, and we got $1,000 from the federal government, and by 2019, he's 19 years old at that point, it grows to $100,000, probably close to that. If it grows to $100,000 and I kick him out of the house, because at 18, it signs over to him. I'm no longer the guardian on that Trump account. It's his Trump account. What do you think my son was going to do as soon as I kicked him out? And he knew he had $100,000 to his name. Look, he would not have gone to the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. He would just have gone to Las Vegas. And that money would be blown. And you know what? When he comes back and he has nothing, it's kind of like the story, if you remember in the Bible, of the prodigal son. And the prodigal son, you remember when the child comes back and he has no more money and he's destitute, his father goes running out to him and gives him a hug. And see, my version would have been a little different. This is why I'm not in the Bible, because I would have ran out and I would have punched him. And that's why the prodigal son is the prodigal son, and I'm not in the Bible. Because that would have a huge impact on our relationship to know he blew $100,000 of my money. In a 529 plan, which is what we had, I transferred that money the day after he left from him to my daughter, because see, I'm the account owner. I control the money. So important. Please don't put a gosh darn penny in of your own money. Put it in a 529 plan. A Primerica rep can help you with that. The third and final reason is that in the 529 plans, they passed the Secure Act 2.0 3 years ago. This is unrelated to the One Big Beautiful Bill, where you can start moving after 15 years of a 529, slowly move money from a 529 to a Roth IRA tax-free. It's basically a conversion or a roll. I guess a rollover is probably the right word. You get to roll that over slowly into a 529, and you can do up to a $35,000 lifetime limit per kid, per social security number. So you can still work it over into a Roth if they're responsible, and if they're not, you don't want to give it to them anyway. I mean, I am living proof of why, for the love of goodness gracious, take the 1,000. The Primerica rep will help you as much as they can. They're not allowed to sell away, but they'll help you as much as they can with getting into an S&P 500 index and coaching up to a point. But then every dollar after that, work with the Primerica rep for a 529 plan. You don't want the prodigal son story of Mark Everswick. You want the prodigal son story of the Bible. I promise you that. So, in conclusion, first one we talked about is the SALT deduction. I think it affects people 150 to 500,000. I think there's a chance that you're going to be able to deduct and itemize your deductions, and you'll get a pay raise from the government this year. Many of you will, not all, but many. Second one, immediate expensing of equipment. Every business owner is excited they're paying less taxes because all of them are going to figure out a way to deduct something and pay less, which is great. It just means you get a coupon for a cheaper price of whatever you're buying. The third one is the tips and overtime. Tips and overtime. I'm sorry. The third one was the 65 and over. Golly, for that one, you get $6,000 of a bonus deduction, whether you itemize or take the standard deduction per person. So that's big. The fourth one is tips and overtime. First 25,000 is tax-free. And then the fifth and final one we talked about is the Trump account. Put the 1,000 away, but every dollar after that, promise me that you will do something else other than a Trump account. And I think the 529 is really the right answer in most cases to solve those problems. So I'm excited here. Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you to close. I don't know if we had a couple of questions in there that I can answer in a minute or two, but otherwise I'll leave it for you, Tim, and I appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you, Mark. That was awesome. What great information. I tell you, I was taking notes and just writing down things that, how exciting is it to jump on a call on Tuesday night and find out you're getting a pay raise, find out that you're getting more money back. You're going to have hey, Merry Christmas, right? Here it is. This is what you're going to get. This is great news. What we're going to do is, again, I'm taking notes, but also I'm thinking of people. I know people that need to know this stuff. People that I know that work in the service industry. that get those tips. That what are they going to do with that money? You know, my daughter has friends in college. They all worked waitress jobs during their summers and that, and they got a bunch of tips. And guess what? They took all the taxes out of that. They're going to be really excited to know that they're getting their money back, and it's going to be exciting for them. So I'm excited about this information. I hope you are too. And again, thank you, Mark, for coming on, for giving us your expertise and helping us in understanding what this bill does. And then even being able to go to our tax accountant here at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year here and say, listen, I know these things are coming up. How can they help me? And what can I do to make sure I max out what I'm going to be getting back from the government and what we're going to get here? So this is awesome. I think this is going to make a big difference, not only for you guys here on our call, but for everybody that's involved, everybody that you know as well. So I do want to say thank you for spending your time with us this evening. We know that during this busy season, your time is valuable. And we hope tonight you're going to be able to leave feeling more informed, more confident, better prepared for the financial decisions you've got to make coming up ahead at the end of the year and into 2026. Now, I will tell you that our most valuable tool here at Primerica, besides our people, is the relationships that we have and the planning process that we do for others. And I will show you this, that our company talks about that most people don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan. And here's what I'm talking about is that 90+% of the people that you know live on your block, live in your community, do not have a written financial plan for debt freedom and financial independence. The problem is they deal with 5, 6, 7 different financial institutions, and they're all selling them their product and not really providing financial solutions. And so that's where, as Jeremiah said at the beginning, we come into play. We are not the same in that we don't sell products, we provide solutions. We have a program called a financial needs analysis. And what it is, it's a customized program that is basically a GPS. We do it complimentary. We don't charge a fee for this because our philosophy is if we can't help you, why should you pay for it? And so what we do is we show you how to take advantage of all these different things, many of the things that Mark was talking about here. And it can help you in every area of your financial future, which includes investment planning and debt elimination, insurance management, legal protection for wills and trusts, and much more. And so what I do is I encourage you to reach out to the person who invited you tonight. Ask them questions about what you heard tonight and how it affects you and doing your financial needs analysis, and let our multiple teams of experts that we have, as Jeremiah talked about on the front end, within our company, help you. Also, if you know anyone that is in need of starting to plan, wanting a complimentary financial needs analysis, or just needs a second opinion, pass that information on to the person that invited you here tonight, and we will be more than happy to talk to them in an exploratory session as far as that goes. So I'm going to shut this down here and stop the share and then finish up. So what I'm going to tell, I encourage you to do those things. And my friends, financial planning, financial freedom, it doesn't happen overnight. It's built choice by choice, step by step, and with good planning and with intention. And so that's what we try to help you do. You now have a few additional tools, some knowledge, and a community of people here at Primerica that are willing to help you get there. So I want to just say thank you again for being here. And here's to a stronger financial future together and a great 2026. So from everybody here at Primerica, at Franklin, and at all our affiliates, everybody have a very Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year, and God bless you, and good night tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
The idea is to toss the pan forward, the local fruit cake, close to the edge of the table, without having it slide out. And I don't know why I broke out there with it. Well, let's just say that. These children are flip-flopping the gift-giving tradition. Another Christmas tree and a toy, which we all smoked with raisins and citrus to older folks who have no family to run. While providing a bright spot on his grandma's day, the child experiences the joy of giving. And today, the children have another important day. It's time to post their letters to Bubble in a Tub, the Italian version of Santa Claus. This
was born. Change.